Hello, everyone. My name is Zulfiqar, and welcome to another episode of Income Investors. With me today is John Whitefoot. But before we start talking about an income idea, I want to let you know that anything you hear in this video is for information and educational purposes only. Investing comes with risk. To read more about it, please see the description below. Recreational cannabis still legal on the national level, but outlook for NewLake Capital Partners Inc., traded on OTC under symbol NLCP, a real estate investment trust, or REIT for short, is focused on providing capital to state licensed cannabis operations remains bright. John, let me ask why.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of background to discuss why the outlook for NewLake is great, but it is. The vast majority of Americans support ending the federal ban, but full-on legalization could be, unfortunately, still years away. For example, former President Trump is in favor of letting states decide themselves. That's noble, but it's still not national. President Biden's move in October 2022 to pardon federal offenses of simple cannabis possession was a big step forward, I think, in both legalization and public sentiment towards cannabis, but Biden still isn't pro-pot. Meanwhile, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis recently said that if he enters the Oval Office in 2025, he will neither decriminalize nor legalize recreational cannabis. Medical cannabis is another story for him, of course. Florida is the country's largest medical marijuana market, with more than $1 billion in annual sales. Anyway, other Oval Office hopefuls are also opposed to legalization, including former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Meanwhile, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was once arrested for marijuana and heroin, is, surprise, in favor of decriminalizing, but not legalization. So what does all this mean? If Biden wins again in 2024, his term will last until 2029. If Republican wins instead and then gets reelected for a second term, technically the earliest pro-pot president wouldn't enter the White House until 2033. Now, legislation could still happen even if Biden, Trump, DeSantis, Kennedy, Christie, or any other candidate wins the White House, though it will be an uphill battle.
So why would all this be a plus for NewLake Capital then?
In addition to the groundswell of states legalizing medical and recreational weed, there will be increased need for cannabis companies to raise capital. And they still can't do that by normal channels right now. And that's because cannabis is still a Schedule I narcotic under the Controlled Substance Act, meaning it's viewed as having no accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse, which of course is nonsense. But maintaining the scheduling puts it in the same category as heroin and ecstasy. But because cannabis is still illegal on the federal level, it's tough for cannabis companies to access traditional banking channels. In fact, most banks won't and can't touch marijuana companies because of the risks associated with federal laws and concerns about money laundering. And that's why marijuana dispensaries don't accept credit cards. Now, if marijuana is rescheduled under the Controlled Cannabis Act, it might be easier for the Safe Banking Act to become law. That legislation would remove the risk of federal compliance in states where recreational cannabis is legal. But until banking legislation happens, at the very least, cannabis companies will continue to find it difficult to access capital from banks and other mainstream financial institutions. Even then, should the Safe Banking Act get passed, some marijuana companies will need to access capital outside of traditional banking channels.
Now, that brings us to NewLake Capital. Explain more.
Yeah, exactly. Well, NewLake Capital Partners is a REIT focused on providing capital to state licensed cannabis operators through sale-leaseback transactions, third-party purchases, and funding for sort of like build-to-suit projects. The company's properties are leased to single tenants on a long-term triple net basis, which means the tenants are responsible for the ongoing expenses of the properties, in addition to its rent obligations, which includes rent escalators of around 2 to 3%. Its sale-leaseback model allows it to enter into long-term 15 to 20-year leases with top tenants in the industry and provides investors with a stable and growing cash flow. And the company's geographically diverse portfolio consists of 32 properties across 12 states, covering 1.7 million square feet. And for context, that's the equivalent of around 30 NFL football fields. Properties are all 100% leased. The average weighted lease term is 14.6 years with 12.1% weighted average yield.
Would you happen to know some of its tenants?
I do. Thank you for asking. Some of its tenants include well-known names in the U.S. cannabis industry: Curaleaf Holdings, TrueLeaf, Air Wellness, and Columbia Care.
Okay, and now let's dig into the financials. How did this company do in the first quarter of 2023?
Quite well. Total first quarter revenue increased 12.3% year over year to $11.4 million. but it did slip 6.8% over the fourth quarter of 2022. The decrease was rare, and it was a result of one tenant that failed to pay contractual rent in the first quarter. Now, NewLake held a security deposit of approximately 3 months of contractual rent in the first quarter of 2023. The company applied 25% or $315,000 of the security deposit towards the outstanding rent. So that just, that just gives a little background on the rare revenue decline. Meanwhile, first quarter 2023 net income rallied 16% to $5.9 million or 27 cents per share. Funds from operation were up 21% year over year at $9.5 million, while adjusted funds from operation increased 19.6% to $9.9 million.
John, I was reading on incomeinvestors.com that the NewLake hiked its Q2 distribution by 11.4%.
Yes, you read correctly. Thank you for reading. In June, the company's board declared a second quarter 2023 cash dividend of 39 cents or $1.50 per unit on an annual basis. Pretty big yield of 10.77%. That represents an 11.4% increase over the 35 cents per share in the same period last year. The high yield dividend is more than safe. The adjusted funds from operation payout ratio is, in the words of management, a conservative 86%.
And what's happening with NLCP stock? How is it doing lately?
Well, NewLake Capital isn't quite as well known yet in cannabis circles as some other companies, but that's only because it went public in the back half of 2021. And in hindsight, it wasn't the best timing. 2022 was not kind to any kind of cannabis stocks, really, or the broader market. That includes NewLake Capital. It ended the year down 39.5%. It started out quite well in 2023, but industry and economic headwinds have been a hurdle for NewLake, which is currently trading down 13% year to date and 11.5% year over year. On the plus side, NewLake Capital stock is up close to 5% over the last month and 9% over the last 3 months.
These seems like small gains, though, for a company that continues to report strong financial results, has rock solid balance sheet, industry leading rent collection, strong pipelines in its history, and a conservative AFFO payout ratio of 86%.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Everything is like on NewLake's side, and Wall Street is in agreement, with analysts providing a 12-month share price target of $16.50.
Hey, John, thank you so much for talking about NewLake Capital Partners Inc. It is an excellent, overlooked alternative banker serving the cannabis industry. While NewLake Capital stock has had a rough ride since it went public in August of 2021, the company is throwing up numbers that should make investors sit up and take notice. Since 2019, revenue has soared from $1 million to projected $46 million in 2023. AFFO has grown from $0 in 2019 to $40 million in 2023. And dividend growth per share has climbed close to 26% from 31 cents in the fourth quarter of 2021 to 39 cents in the second quarter of 2023. Going forward, the strong demand for real estate capital should allow it to meaningfully grow its AFFO, high yield dividend, and share price. That's it for today. We'll be back with another income idea soon. If you want to read more about what John writes, you could head directly to www.incomeinvestors.com. Stay tuned. In the meantime, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye for now.